And I'm going to. Hey everyone, my guest today is Eden Espinosa. Eden was recently nominated for a Tony Award for her extraordinary performance as Tamara de Lempicka in the Broadway musical Lempicka. Her other Broadway roles include Elphaba in Wicked and Maureen in Rent. She also starred in Brooklyn the musical, Falsettos, Gardens of Anuncia, Rain in the Heights, Merrily We Roll Along. Her original albums are available on all streaming platforms. Welcome back, two-time podcast guest, Eden.
Yay!
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am so well. I'm so thrilled to get to tell you almost in person how extraordinary your performance is in this musical that I got to see. And that as I speak to you, you are in like Tony madness.
Mm,
And so it is a Thursday in May.
hmm.
You look extraordinarily beautiful. No one would know
Thank
how
you.
tired you were. Like you gave birth to many, many children and then
Mm.
got back out the next day and make it look easy. So, how are you today? Like, how are you at this moment?
It's been a wild couple of weeks since we got our closing notice, the same 2 days after I found out I was nominated for a Tony. I have a like emotional whiplash.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of like processing the last 2 weeks. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel. And we closed on Sunday, and this week has been jam-packed with events. So I'm still not 100% like present with the variety of feelings that I'm in, and I'm feeling all of them, which is quite beautiful. But it is I'm still like, wait, what happened? Wait, did it happen?
Yeah.
Yay, and like happiness and sadness and gratitude and grief and relief in a way as well. There's all sorts of things. But today I'm happy to be here with you and to talk a little bit.
Well, that all makes sense. I mean, the thing is, the Broadway run may be shorter than all of you originally thought it might be, but you, my beloved friend, have been playing this role in
Mm.
so many ways for so long in so many places. So this was like actually a really long run of
Yeah.
someone, connected to a role that really feels like tailor made for you. Although I'm
Mm.
sure, like everything else, there's always like the fight to get the thing that's tailor made for you.
That's right.
Can we go back a little bit just for the four people who don't yet know the
Hmm.
story of how you and Lempicka became family in this way?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
when did you first
I
hear about this project?
It was I want to say it was like maybe 2012 that I first heard about it. I went to see a production, a presentation of a musical called Witness Uganda that Matt Gould had written with Griffin Matthews, and that Diane Paulus was directing. And it was at Columbia, and it was a concert version. And I I had just never experienced anything like that show or that music. And I sent a message to the writers and just said, I'd love to hear anything else that you've been working on. I was just so touched and moved by this piece. And Matt sent me Lempicka. And other people were attached to it, and I myself didn't do something with it until 2013. So 2013 was the first reading that I did, and I was actually Rafaela. um, and yeah, and then I was in and out of iterations. I didn't do it for a while, and then they were doing a presentation at NAMT in which I stepped in with 3 days rehearsal because somebody got sick. Um, and then they went with a different name. They wanted to go with a bigger name after that, and then that bigger name went on to do bigger things. And then I re-auditioned, and that's when Rachel had gotten involved, and I had to audition 3 times. And then that was from Williamstown in 2018 on. I've been attached as Tamara.
So there's some humility involved, right? When you've done something and you've done it well and you've gotten tremendous feedback for it. By the way, full circle feedback as we sit here
Yeah,
today, where
yeah.
not only do I think you're amazing, everyone who's ever seen you do this part globally thinks you're amazing. So the humility to kind of, just because so many artists listen to this, not just people who
Hmm.
arts, but people who are doing it themselves,
Hmm.
that thing of like doing something and then it moves into like a new level of production and you have to audition for it again for the
Hmm.
people you've been working with. Did you
Hmm.
have conversations with the creative team like, please come in, we've got you, we're holding you, or did you go in and did they act like they never met you before?
I mean, they didn't act like they'd never met me before, but it was very much, I knew I was fighting for it. It wasn't a formality.
Given. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't this is a formality. We just have, it wasn't that by any means. I had to fight for it, and I knew that, I feel like there are certain scenarios in which I would have been like, no, I'm not going to audition for this. I've been doing this part for you for years. Later on down the line, it might have been, but at the time, I knew that I knew that my version of this character was so in my soul. And I knew I wanted to fight for it. And even if it didn't turn out that I got it, at least I like tried, you know. Um, so yeah, that was the situation. It
I know
was, yeah.
I know it's years ago now and probably hard to remember it, but were you nervous? As
Yes.
you were.
Yeah, 100%.
What does that look like on you? Because I think people would be like, we cannot imagine what that looks like. Is it all internal? And, or do you think it shows on the outside? Is that part of the charm? Like, what do you think it looks like?
Ooh, that's interesting. I think for me, if I'm zooming out and looking at myself, I think it can look like um apprehensiveness or tentativeness or playing small. I think sometimes I can, or it's the leading up to actually being in the room that looks more nerve wracking. And then once I get in there, I can, like,
Do the work.
but yeah, yeah. I don't think I think I have at that point in my life as well, I had enough tools to use to not let my nerves overtake, the
Yeah.
work, like you said. So, but I think leading up to it, the preparation for it, the anticipation, sitting outside the door before you get in the door.
Hearing other people singing similar
Yes,
material. That
yes,
sounds like I
yes.
always have to thing or say.
Yeah.
But it worked out, and I'm sure you are also riding this wave, which is sort of the same if it hadn't had a surprising closing date, which is when
Mm,
something is closing, the people who come out to see it do not want to be anywhere else on the planet
that's
except
right.
that room with the artistry
Yeah,
coming with them. So I assume you're also like really full from that
yeah.
love.
Yeah, it was, the outpouring of support and love from the community was just overwhelming. And from the beginning, I think that, like, I really felt the community happy for me and wanting, like, yes, you finally are back. People have known how long I've been attached to this project. So you really felt people cheerleading for you and supporting you. And then our last, 2.5 weeks, we just kept going out on a bigger and bigger high, and I was so grateful for that because, if you've had the experience of crawling, to the finish line with houses that are just, you know, sparse and still lovely but small, it's really hard, especially, we would always joke we're not a matinee show. Like, our show is kind of like heavy and epic, and sometimes doing it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon was like jarring for
Yeah,
us,
yeah,
to
yeah.
dive into that world and sometimes the heaviness and the complexities of it. But yeah, the last 2 weeks were just unbelievable. And we were just so, so grateful for that energy coming at us.
Why do you think? So, I mean, we've sort of buried the lead, isn't the right expression, but we've gotten into thick of it before, sort of, for the few people who don't know who Tamara was and sort of
Mm.
her role in history, maybe you could just very briefly, because I'm sure you're well versed in this now, talk a little bit about who she is. And then I want to talk about where you feel like you and Tamara, because this was such an incredible fusion of artist and
Mm-hmm.
art, um,
Mm.
felt like it was written for you, but it wasn't, as we now know,
Mm.
like there was some work to
Mm-hmm.
for it. Tell us about Tamara, and then we're going to talk about you and Tamara as the dynamic duo.
Yeah. Tamara de Lempicka was this, ahead of her time in the way that her mind worked in order to survive, in order to promote herself, in order to get into certain rooms, to flee countries, to, all this stuff. And the truth is, we have these beautiful touchstones, which is her uh, granddaughter, great granddaughter. Um, but we don't know a lot about her because we do know that she told versions of truths for everything, um, and partially because she um, was Jewish, partially because she was a woman, partially because she was queer, partially because so many things. Even her how old she was and when she was born, we found out recently, was not originally what she said. So you know and it's of a time where we didn't have interviews to listen to or footage to watch. There is some footage, but audio and stuff. So um this woman, I just am fascinated.
Interject, she was a painter, just to say the kind
Yes,
of,
sorry, yes.
that's okay. But also, like, and if you go and Google her paintings, you'll be like, oh, I recognize that work. She,
Yes,
you know what
100%.
I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. And yeah, it was just of the Art Deco period where, if she was a man, everyone, would know who she was, just like, Picasso and Dali and like all these names that we know. Um, and it's just wild to the threads of patriarchy, of things that were alive and well then that are still very much alive and well now, that which is obviously heartbreaking at times. But because over the years, the more and more I learned about her and I dove into books and facts, it was actually like less helpful than it was helpful, because of the versions of truths. Because and so for me, I had to take that information and ask questions. What was that like as a human, to consistently have to keep up? What story did I tell to somebody? What do I have to say in order to get out of the situation, in order to get into that situation? And I wanted to capture that essence of the survival, but the calculation on how to navigate things, how at times that must be exhausting, how at times it must be exhilarating, depleting, but also powerful, to feel like I can get myself in and out of any situation. Um, so it's like, for me, that was the most important part, to feel the qualities of her that if she were a man would be admirable, and because she was a woman were almost unlikable. And I wanted to, as much as I can, capture that essence and capture and have compassion for it and bring the humanity forward.
Often, as artists, we sort of know a lot about the art we do, but not necessarily a lot about other types of art, even if we're
Mm,
fans. So
mm,
how much was like painters and painting and visual art something I can only imagine now you go through the world with a whole new set of eyes and appreciate,
yes.
because that's the fun of being an actor. You deep dive
Yeah.
into these worlds and they start to feel real at a certain
Yeah.
level, right? Even if you can't
Yeah.
actually paint, you know how to hold a paintbrush and you're looking at things through a certain lens. So would you say that sort of in this role you've become more attuned to the visual arts, or were you always someone who was really interested in painting?
No, I would say no. And out of all the visual arts, I'd say that was the one I was interested in the least, because I never had like a natural ability towards it, towards
Right.
drawing, towards painting. I do like the expression of it. Like during the pandemic and even years ago when I was in LA with Wicked, my roommate and I would buy canvases and paints and literally just have fun and be kids,
I
not
love
to
that.
make something great, but and so I like the expression of it, but I feel like and I like to take pictures, so there are times that I see certain things that somebody wouldn't see that I want to take a picture of. But for me, the way that learning about how her painting technique and how never let them see your brush strokes, how her paintings look smooth and like steel, and like this is beautiful dichotomy of hard and soft, and the colors are so vibrant and luminous that that was a very deliberate thing, that she would make each layer upon layer dry, but and layer it on top so that it looked like skin, or it looked like it was glowing from within. And
Right.
she always wanted, out of 100 paintings in a room, I want somebody to be able to go, that I know that's Tamara de Lempicka, and people do that, so it is it's a beautiful thing to think about at a time when today we think about how you brand yourself, how are you going to set yourself apart from somebody else, and she was doing that like long before it was even a thing. Through her paintings, she handled all of her deals, all of her photos. She controlled how the lighting was, what photos they could and couldn't print of her. So she was just a boss. you
So
know
incredible. As I listened to you when you mentioned Wicked and painting, like, as you know, there are so many women who are part of the Green Sisterhood who have been on the
yes.
podcast. And I feel like similarly, like they're all painters. How do you stand out? How do all of these women in green makeup who
Mm.
have the same role of Elphaba find their Elphaba, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do
Mm-hmm.
you do that? And as you know, in your friendships with all of these incredible artists who have played that role, who
Yeah.
have like a distinctive take on it, a distinctive fan base, right? Like there's all these ways in which like you're the rock and roll Elphaba and you're the,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever it is, right? You're the first
Yeah.
Elphaba of this, of that, and yet within that community, which I think makes it unique in this way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there aren't that many shows that run that long, although I do
Sure.
believe that Lempicka is going to have a renaissance and a resurgence in a way that we don't know yet. Like I feel that so strongly. I'm sure you do too. You are not
Yeah.
the only one to play this role.
Mm.
There are going to be people trying to live up to your Lempicka. There will be girls singing it for their auditions, like the way iconic characters live on in
Mm-hmm.
theater. Um, but there are things that you described about her and her time that, the last time you were on this podcast, it was, I think, still COVID, and you
Mm-hmm.
were really like speaking out about accountability and fairness and
Mm-hmm.
transparency in all industries, but specifically in the industry that you work in. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at the time we talked about like there's always the thing when you are the squeaky wheel. Is
Mm-hmm.
somebody gonna be mad at me? And then,
Mm-hmm.
what happens when I say my truth? And
Mm-hmm.
you did it anyway, right? And I think what just has made me so happy is that not without questions about what does this look like for me, except
Mm-hmm.
if this is what it looks like, I'll go work someplace else, right?
Mm-hmm.
This unbelievable clarity and strength and just so articulate about it. And we're not business people, but to sort of dive into something. We're not painters either, but we're actors. We
Mm-hmm.
whatever the thing is. And
Yeah.
and guess what? Like you speak your truth. You are a transparent human being.
Mm.
Not only beloved, but like unbelievably respected. And I
Mm.
wonder if you've been carrying that with you and sort of feel that. And is this nomination also like a part of that story in some way?
Yeah.
The work, but for the human doing the work.
Yeah. I mean, It is, it's funny because you attach yourselves to projects that I attach myself to projects that um, are not necessarily commercially viable, that for Broadway standard today, but they light me up and they challenge me and they help me expand and grow. And I naively was like, once we get to Broadway, like we're gonna be a hit, like we are, right? Like we all sort of thought that, because it was like, oh, people are ready to hear about these themes, they're ready to see a queer woman centered of the story, who isn't rescued by a man, who isn't who is flawed and human and complex. And when that didn't happen, it was, I know I'm still feeling all the things, but I had to remind myself of, like, Eden, you haven't worked on Broadway in 16 years. You haven't originated something in 20, and that is deliberate, because you have attached yourself or said no to auditions, or no to opportunities that you knew were not going to fill up your cup, or were not in alignment with any, whatever. And I had to remind myself of that, and I had to remind myself that, like, it's okay, this is the path, and doesn't mean that it's over, it doesn't mean it was a failure, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. And the recognition, from the community, or from the nomination, and it's funny as well, because it's everything and it's nothing, right? It's like, if I didn't get it, I knew I had went through all the scenarios, right? What if Amber gets one and I don't? What if I get one and she doesn't? What if we get entirely shut out? What if we get all the things and then we're the
Mhm.
show of the season, But it was just like, I knew that it came at a point when I actually didn't need it anymore, if that makes sense.
Of
And I
course.
knew that, like, I was proud of our show. I was proud of my work in the show. I was proud of everyone's work in the show. And we were a very specific perspective, strong point of view, big swings from everyone, design, creative, cast. And so it was just kind of like, this is how it was meant to be, and we will see what happens,
And I
so
want to add that the beauty, and I had never seen this before, when you walked in the theater, the orchestra, rather than being in the pit or sort of revealed at the end because a backdrop flies up and you see who's been playing the whole time, the
yeah.
orchestra was sitting in the boxes, orchestra right and orchestra left. That was actually, to me, I thought, okay, this is a show that respects every single artist, and no one's more important, and nothing happens without one. And then your conductor suddenly is on stage as well. I mean, there were all
Yes,
kinds of
yes.
things. I was like, well, that's a magic trick that just happened.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
there was a culture of respect and inclusivity, uh,
Hmm.
that I just thought you walked in and you were immediately like, it was breathtaking, because
Hmm.
you realize, like, look at all the people that make this, like, look at all the talent on every level. Your ushers were the nicest ushers, like
Oh,
every,
that's so nice.
you know what I mean? And it didn't take like,
Yeah.
sounds like pie, like everyone was just like,
Yeah.
it was just and you learned stuff and you felt stuff, and you then left the show not only like elated from the beautiful music and singing and artistry, but then like curiosity about history, if you don't know
Hmm.
parts of history. And
Hmm.
also, like, those were the hottest two people on stage, you and like some crazy
Thank you.
stuff going on. And honestly, you were just too beautiful for most people. I think it was just too much. The beauty, the power, the
Thank
passion,
you.
the talent. Yeah, that is what is really, really ridiculous about this business still. Like, this stuff, it's so
Hmm.
obvious that you can't control. It's
Hmm.
really crazy making.
Yeah.
First of all, I think this should be also a film. I'm sure there's all kinds of conversations, not just filming the show, unless maybe you did,
Hmm.
but that, like, no brainer. But also, like, this is, people like Madonna, there are artists
Hmm.
with, like, longevity and creativity that keeps evolving, who were just so inspired by Lempicka. And I
Hmm.
think there's such a broad audience, like, even even if the show went forever, like most people don't get to see a show on Broadway. Like it just
Hmm.
doesn't happen. They don't get to learn it that way. So I
Hmm.
feel like there are a million ways for you to play Lempicka that billions of people can see. So that's what I'm working on. That is my letter
Mm,
campaign.
love it.
You just know you're good, girl. What about other things? Do you have other things that you're looking forward to work-wise that you know about yet? Not
I
yet.
don't. Yeah,
Okay.
because I was supposed to be doing this for the next year.
Proud of
So,
people.
so it's like it is a strange thing of like people, asking you at your wedding if you're gonna have or when are you gonna have a kid or are you gonna have kids? And you're like, I just got married. Like, and I
Oh,
don't
your
I
role.
yeah, I don't know. And I think right now I'm just um like I said, even this week has been very busy and I haven't fully processed other than joy on Wednesday morning going, I don't have to do the show at 1 p.m. today because I hated the 1 p.m.
What was
matinee.
that? You would be on
Just the rudest.
Instagram just completely infuriated, and also
Yes.
we got to see how you made your beautiful face. Like you are a face.
Yeah.
Your skill with makeup is so crazy. Like you're so good at that. By
I
the
secretly would want to be a makeup artist in another life. So I love makeup and I love doing it. So thank you.
yes, to watch you do that, I was like, I am watching a painting come to life.
Hmm.
Um, why was there 1 o'clock matinee? I'm just curious. What was that?
I don't know. I think a lot of shows have moved to, 7 p.m. curtains, and some of their two show days are still 2 and 8, but ours were 1 and 7.
I see. That's why.
Um, which it was just, you don't, when we first started it, it wasn't like that during previews, but once we opened, it was. And I thought to myself, oh, you know, the hour is not going to make that much of a difference, but it certainly did.
I mean, I know we've all done that thing where you're like, you're going to be on, the Today Show or whatever, and it's like a one-off, and you're getting up at
Mhm.
5 a.m. and it's horrific, and you're doing that. But it
Yeah.
sounds to me like what it felt like to you.
Yeah.
Just
Yes. And it was a collective. It was the entire cast.
yes,
You
misery.
know, yeah, because it's just, the first 20 minutes of the show are you're shot out of a cannon. So it's just even sometimes the lights and the sound were just felt very aggressive at 1 in the afternoon.
What was your like right before you went on stage? Just I want to get some of your favorite rituals and moments while I have you, and before I let you go to the many luncheons and dinners and magazine shoots and all the beautiful things that you're doing. What was your like before I walked on stage, I did this, or this actor and I always, or my dresser and I did this.
Yeah.
Your
Well, I mean, I was suited up as old Tamara in the most fabulous of costumes. And I think it was, seeing everybody on stage, with the scrim down and saying hi, but then I would always depart early and on the side to myself. It's kind of like my dresser would hand me the sunglasses and I put them on and she'd hand me my cane and I would just always have a couple minutes of silence, of centering, preparing for the ride because this it was actually the hardest thing I've ever had to do, this role. And I don't know how or if I could have sustained it for a year, 8 shows a week. Like it was funny. They gave me the option and I was like, I want to start with 8. And I was just about to have a talk with the producers of like, I think I want to go down to 7. And then after the Tonys, maybe go down to 6. And we got our closing and I was like, oh, I could finish out 2 weeks. But it was incredibly demanding of me in every capacity. So I needed, it was a lot of not only, okay, let's focus for what we're about to do, but mentally prepare for like what I'm about to do. Eden, not getting into character, but like, okay, girl, you got this one scene. Some days it was literally all I can focus on is one scene at a time. I can't even think about the fact that I'm going to do this again later today. Um, so I needed that moment of just like, okay, we got this. Here we go.
you did.
Yeah.
And when you think back right now, I know that it's very it's also tender right now
Mhm.
for all the reasons. But do you remember the day that you first, like, the marquee was up and
Yes.
like that's that's the day, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many milestones that I have of those, of just like the day that, Matt Gould, who our composer, who's one of my best friends now, I mean, our relationship over the years has just become this beautiful, intimate, gorgeous thing. And him calling me, telling me that I got the part for Williamstown, him calling me, um, telling me that we got a theater, and both of us crying, and finally like seeing the marquee up there, and our first day in the theater. There's just those magic moments that we all, remember and cherish. And I think, again, no matter how short-lived it was, like, we did it, and we came out guns blazing, and showed them who we were, and showed them who she was, and who our show was, and we were here. We were
I
here.
can't believe I get to sit with you right now, like truly, like in the middle of like all of this beautiful, real emotion and love and disappointment and hope and just what it is, like what it
Mm.
is to be a lifer, right? Like
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the theater, on paper what it looks like, the high, I mean, you've had such, when you've just put your sort of unique singular voice on so many roles, and people
Mm.
feel so like ownership of you, like she's mine from
Mm.
this show, she's mine from Brooklyn,
Yeah.
from this, and you have all these people
Mm.
who just don't know you but root for you so deeply and are so
Yeah.
lucky to have your voice in their AirPods or earbuds or whatever they're doing in their day to feel better, like they listen to you, and
Mm.
very powerful. And I know your family is so unbelievably proud of you, and
Yeah.
your friends and the people who love you, and then people like me who just get to be in your orbit and just feel the warmth of your light shine. And congrats on just
Thank you, love.
an unbelievable ride with something that's like so many gifts are in the future that are connected to this. You don't even,
Mm.
and we're going to come back and talk about it, and we're going to be like, oh my God, like,
Yeah. I
whoa.
love that.
And
Yeah.
that's
Thank you
just
so much.
a fact. Before I let you go, because it's just how I have to end every episode, and it just has to be wherever, and whatever comes in your mind. What is a little known fact about Eden?
I am the biggest Disney adult, and I don't apologize for it. I'm not ashamed of it. And I know people judge me for it, but I'm the biggest Disney adult nerd, child at heart, and I will never not be.
Uh, Disney thanks you. Hey, I love you. Have an
I
incredible.
love you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank
And
you for having me again.
more. Oh my God. Okay. Bye.
Bye, love. Thank
Annie, of
you.
course.
My